Oh, aloha kakahiaka, everybody. This is the pregame show. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes. So if you're watching this, if you're not watching this live, you can fast forward about 3 minutes to get to where the real show is. But then again, if you do that, you're gonna miss out on all the pregame fun, where we talk about basically nothing to kind of warm up for 3 minutes. So I want to kind of start. Heidi, give me the coffee. Give me the coffee update. What's the coffee? What's the coffee story for today?
Well, I did have my coffee tomorrow. I mean, this morning, tomorrow. Anyway, I need some coffee.
More coffee.
I'm still drinking the yellow Katura coffee. That's one of my favorites. It's grown right here on Maui. And I've been on a mini staycation, staying right on Napili Bay. So you just wake up and you walk right on out on the beach. So it was a great morning. I have
Oh
nothing.
man. Is there anything better than having like a fresh brewed cup of coffee in the morning, the crispness of the morning dew, sitting at or near the beach or overlooking the ocean and having that first magic sip? I can't be beat. Can't be beat. Can't be beat. Scott, give us the update. How's it looking over there? It looks beautiful as usual, and I want to remind everyone that is not a virtual background. That's a real background. He can actually reach out, and he can't touch it because it's real. But what's up, Scott?
Yeah, I feel like every time I'm on here, it's Groundhog Day. It's beautiful as usual. I think only one time it's been cloudy here, and this is what I was referring to when living at the base of Diamond Head. There's maybe 2-3 clouds in the sky, and it just feels perfect. Not a whole lot of winds moving, so the palm trees aren't going much. But I've been able to swim a lot in the evenings lately and just kind of relax and unwind right in this environment. So life's been pretty darn good lately.
What's the Aloha? Let's do the Aloha shirt update. What you got today?
Yeah, another wren spooner, but this is I believe these are plumerias, which is kind of a tree that grows here with just gorgeous cluster of flowers, which is these. But I've probably had this shirt 15 years also. I had to dig it out of the bin, deep out of the bin.
the old guys digging their 15-year-old shirts out of the bin. Yeah, plumerias are that fragrant flower. If you get a lei in Hawaii, there's a good chance it's a plumeria lei. Dylan, what's going on in the corner of motivation? Dylan, what's happening?
That's right. Not too much. Just glad that it's Aloha Friday and we're doing the show this week. It's been kind of warm for October for everybody who's watching, and maybe it's a little bit getting nippy where you're at. For some reason, over on the Big Island, it's been pretty warm for October, even at night. So that's a good problem to have, in my opinion, though. So no complaints.
No complaints. And it looks like that looks like a taro plant, right? Are those taro leaves? What's the shirt update?
This is also a Sig Zane, local designer out of Hilo. And then this is kalo taro, and a staple of the Hawaiian food system. You can pretty much eat everything on it. It's like a potato, I guess, is the best way to describe it, but they mash it into. That's how you make poi, is the corm and the bottom, and then you can eat the stems, and then you use the leaves, and you can make a bunch of different stuff. But the most probably well-known one is lau lau, where you wrap meat inside of the taro leaves and then you steam it, and it's delicious.
I think one of the rites of passage, I think, in adjusting to local culture in Hawaii is when you truly love having poi on your plate. That's kind of when you know that you've arrived. Okay, good. Hey, cool. Hey, it's 9:01. Let's kind of get rolling to everybody, and I want to welcome everyone. Welcome Jim. Jim's a good, reliable subscriber, listener, watcher, viewer. Welcome, Jim. And hey, Kinaya, welcome, Kinaya. Good to see you folks. Everybody else, welcome all. We got a lot to cover today. And so we're going to do our normal thing and a little bit extended here. Let's get that COVID update. And my comment on this is hold your breath. It's a little bit hidden by the logo there, but it's hold your breath. So here's what's going on. And there's a lot to talk about here because I think it's going to be valuable. And by the 15th, looks like the goal of opening Hawaii on the 15th of October looks like it's still in play. That looks, it is so far so good. I haven't seen any signs that indicate that give me reasons to seriously doubt it. And what else is what's going on with that, as we had mentioned last time, is there is the way it's going to fundamentally work is if you get a negative, if you have a test within 72 hours, and of course it's negative, there are no restrictions. What's interesting about that, I'm going to go into a little bit more details here because I think this is an important episode. United is really interesting. They're offering an instant test, 15 minutes, an instant test from San Francisco. But there is a but. Let me go into a little bit more details here because I'm sure that people are going to ask. And by the way, folks, if you're watching, please throw the comments in. I'll try to take your questions as we can. I'm sure this is going to bring up a lot of questions for people. Let's get to this next one over here. So this is a quick, I think this is a nice, easy to read kind of chart. If you're flying into Hawaii, there's like 1, 2, and 3. The third one is, no test, you stay for 14 days of quarantine. You obviously don't want to do that one. Number 1 is if you take a test within 72 hours and you have a negative result sort of in hand, you can travel through a form and through a process, and you've got no restrictions. You can, the moment you land is the moment you can get together with. The moment you land is the moment you can get together with one of these amazing people and find the house that you've been waiting for, right? That's that. And then the other one, the number 2 is a little bit of a nuance, is if you take a test within 72 hours, but you don't have your test yet, you do get you are quarantined in Hawaii until you get that negative result. And when you get that negative result, you are good to go. So that's a quick overview as to the way the testing goes. Let me talk about this. I think this to me really gives me a lot of confidence that I think this is going to happen. This is the San Francisco instant test. So this is United has got this going. And if you look at the details here, United, the yellow part over here, this is on United's webpage. It's going to be an interesting thing. First and exclusive, United for travelers from San Francisco on United are going to be able to take this United Airlines instant test, which is going to be a 15-minute long test, and that's all it takes. And apparently they're saying there it does meet the state requirements for Hawaii. So that's kind of to me, that was like a kind of a big, kind of a dead giveaway that this program is kind of serious. This time it's kind of really going to happen. Let's talk about the but. There's always a but, right? Here's the buts. So it looks like there are some complications here. So, Governor Ige has been saying that, we can only do 2,000 to 3,000 tests per day. And, that's not the, if we have, X thousand visitors per day that want to get all tested while they're here, we don't have that kind of capacity, and we don't want to take away our capacity to test local residents from visitors. So there's a little bit of what does that mean? Not exactly sure. Interestingly enough, the islands, the counties, Kauai and Maui, they want to do a double test. They want to do a test within 72 hours after arriving, and then do a test again in a few days. So that kind of raises all kinds of question marks. Kauai's mayor has said that, Maui's mayor has said that, and even Oahu, Kirk Caldwell has said, well, we'd like to do that, but we don't think it's practical. So there's a couple of questions that give me the but on this thing. Again, not enough to throw it off, but it's not 100%, not everyone's on board with exactly the way it's going to happen. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, he's the one that I think gives me, he's kind of saying, look, we got to open this up. We've got to open up Hawaii for economic reasons, and he feels confident, that we can handle the increase in cases. And he's not really that confident about, that the double testing that the neighbor island folks are, want to do is really going to be something that's going to be practical. So, summary on this is we'll know at the next show, because the show happens every 2 weeks. Next week will be the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. I may have the math wrong here. Our next show will be the 16th, which will be the day after. Looks like everyone wants this happening. Businesses here are at the breaking point, which is what the lieutenant governor has been saying. Hey, we got to get this thing going. We got to open it. Not everything has been figured out, and by next week we will know for sure. That's the COVID update. Does anyone have any stories about? We're going to talk about real. I want to get you folks real estate update in a moment, but before we kind of jump into that, I've been talking for a lot. Anything you folks want to chime in about what I've said? Anything you want to add? Any stories that you've heard? Anything you want to say? Let's just go around real quick. Dylan, is there anything that you've got that you want to add to this? You're muted. Unmute your thing, but I let Red say nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you got it covered. That was pretty detailed.
Yeah, I had to get detailed.
It's better than any real newscast I've seen. That made more sense. So good job.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm a newscaster. Not Scott. Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think American Airlines, if I'm not mistaken, is rolling out the same testing for Hawaii, and it looks like Hawaiian is as well. And I kind of see this as a smart move. The airlines need to do it. It's almost like, look, let us take this out of you guys' hands because you're not doing it right, and we need the revenue. So we'll go ahead and implement some kind of system, which I think you're going to see this rolled out more and more.
You're so right. I've been saying for the longest time that this problem is really for the airlines to fix, because Hawaii or not, the airline industry is dead in the water. If you're not, they're dead in the water. Heidi, is there anything that you've heard that you want to add to this?
Well, I'm just looking forward to more direct flights to Maui. Because in the past we've been able to fly direct from the mainland to Maui, and through this period of COVID, most people have had to stop over in Honolulu, and then it adds another leg to the journey. So I'm excited to see there's more flights coming our way, and some people here are excited about the reopening, and some people are a bit tentative, just wait and see. So I think we just all have to wait and see what it's going to be.
I would say wait until our next exciting episode. The truth will be revealed at our next exciting episode. Very true. So, Megan, do you have to be a resident of California? No, you don't. You just have to you have to go to the United website and log in through United for United side. I would think that Scott had mentioned American Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines. Go through the airlines to get the detailed information. But my understanding is it's going to be done at the airport. Whether or not you're a resident of California is irrelevant. I would recommend everybody go through the airlines of your choice and find out what the exact details are. United's got there's a lot of details on those websites. Hey, and before we get into the real estate part, here's an interesting one, Dylan. You'll like this. Paul says, love the show. Can we get someone on Kauai? Dylan, we're a gang. We don't want to we're going to, little secret. We're looking at getting someone from Kauai. Aren't sure yet. Haven't done the screen test, but we're talking. We may have someone from Kauai, which would be so cool, because we would be like the first awesome statewide real estate show that no one's ever done before, which is kind of so cool. Didn't plan it that way, but that's the way it turned out. All right, let's move on. Let's get to let's talk about the real estate market. I want to get a quick update, really quick. I know it's gang. Last time we spent like a half an hour on this, but it's okay. It's important. It's what people want to know. And gang, send us your questions as they come in, and we're going to try to do the best that we can. Dylan, what's happened over the past 2 weeks that is of notable for the real estate market on the Big Island?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any notable. Last month hasn't come out yet, so I haven't looked at that. We should have it in a couple of days here, but it's still very strong, and I'm getting more and more people now booking flights because of this October 15th change. So I think it's going to get pretty busy here in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now. So it's already pretty busy, but it's going to get busier, and definitely stuff is flying off the shelves. I mean, as soon as it comes on the market, we're still seeing multiple offers or things going under contract within a few days. So I don't think that's gonna change here anytime soon, and it's gonna get worse before it gets worse in the sense that it's going to get more busy. So
yeah, no, thanks, Dylan. Look, I want to remind everyone that there's links in the description about you should put that forward, and there's a link that says help us find a home for you. That link goes to a form that goes to the four of us. And so if you want to get this party started over here, I would recommend that you kind of take that action. Scott, what's happened on Oahu over the past 2 weeks that's notable?
Yeah, we're still in the same pattern, but what I've noticed is we're coming out of the summer months now, and in doing so, there's actually less listings coming on, and we still have a large pool of buyers in the market. So you still a lot of multiple offer situations. So what I would actually say at this time is we're in a marketplace where it's key and really important for you as the consumer to be linked up not only with someone who has significant experience in this kind of marketplace that can navigate and guide you through this, but also someone who has a good reputation within the community that knows the other brokers really well, that has worked with them for many years. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I know most of the people and have done deals with them. And that's where you start being able to not only get your offer accepted, but working with someone who's experienced in this kind of environment can help navigate the emotions that come with this kind of marketplace where you are competing with multiple offer situations.
Yeah, we touched on that last week as well, and that's a really important point, that having someone who's experienced at this point will help you get through, because it's a rush, it's a kind of a crazy time, and having that experience and also that network of contacts. Dylan had mentioned this at the last show. You know, brokers, they know each other, and they know the good ones versus the not so good ones, and clearly our team are the good ones, which means our offers have a better chance. Heidi, what's going on? What's happening on Maui? Anything that's kind of been notable over the past 2 weeks that's worth talking about?
Well, I mean, just echoing what Dylan and Scott said, I mean, very similar. It's been an active market. I'm actually seeing some buyers who had been holding off earlier in the year have come out to Maui, have done their quarantine, are now out seriously looking at properties. And I have multiple appointments with people who are coming end of October. So I do anticipate that being a busy time. I mean, of course, everybody's anticipating this travel reopening. So, I mean, we're back up to the level of activity that we were before COVID right now here on Maui. I mean, year to date, our numbers are still down, but it's just impressive how strong the market's been, considering tourism's been down so significantly.
It's really a remarkable thing. I mean, it comes back to what we've all known about, Hawaii's real estate market, which is it is incredibly resilient. It is unbelievably resilient. And Scott, I'll be looking forward to the future to hear how the Waikiki market kind of recovers. All right, let's move on. And hey, Dylan, here's another one for our Kauai candidate. Yes, please. Joanna says, yes, please, someone from Kauai. Looks like we're striking a nerve there, gang. All right, well, you're going to ask for it. We're going to do the best that we can to bring it up for you. All right, let's go with our first question over here. And this one is for you, Dylan. And this is Sarah from Montpelier, Mont something, Vermont. Please forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. And she says, I first started to study the Big Island real estate housing market after my first visit there in 2014. I was baffled by what I saw because it was so different than my local market in Vermont that I've been studying for many years. I didn't realize at the time, but I was seeing the tall end of the fallout from the 2009 crash. My local market had not experienced such a dramatic change as what I saw in the Hawaii market. Then in about 2018, the amazing deals seemed to start to disappear. I slightly regret not buying something when I was first looking at the market, but I'd always heard that you should study a real estate market before buying a property in it, and I was too new to it and baffled by how different it was. I'm interested in hearing Dylan's observations about the Big Island real estate market over the past 10 plus years. So Dylan, Sarah's calling you out specifically to comment on kind of what you've seen over the past 10 years. I think she's asking for, learn about the past. What does that tell you about the future? How would you respond to Sarah's question, Dylan?
Yeah, there's definitely been, in the last 10 years. So the way to kind of think about it is like the crash was in 2008. And so we kind of hit the bottom in 2009. And if you look at prices back then, a lot of times when we take a listing, first thing I look up is when that buyer bought that property, because if they bought it in that 7 to 9 window, a lot of times when they're selling it today, they're kind of just back at where they bought it back then 10 years ago. So we're kind of approaching those prices again at the top of the bubble the last time. So you're definitely seeing now us 10 years later getting back to those prices where we were at 10 years ago. But it's been a slow and steady climb. And the first 5 years were a little bit slower, but definitely I think your observation about things since 2018. the appreciation hasn't been like extremely fast or anything. It's always been like 3 to 5% every year, but that those 5% of a larger number looks like a bigger jump in a dollar figure every year, right? So it can psychologically look like it's since 18 been going up faster, but it really hasn't. But we're definitely at prices that were reflective of kind of the bubble prices way back. It doesn't mean we're in a bubble. It would just, when we were in those bubble years, it went in like 3 years, it went up as fast as it's gone up in the last 10 years. So we're definitely, and that's just reflective of a strong market and low interest rates and lots of buyer demand because of everything that's going on in the mainland and other places and people wanting to be here. So I think your observations are pretty accurate.
So interesting. So basically what I'm hearing you say, Dylan, and I was not aware of this at all myself, but there was a big bubble pop on the Big Island and looks like it took about 10 years to recover. Is that generally, I mean, would that be a one sentence characterization?
Yeah, we had, and again, if you just look at it from a percentages standpoint, right? If you have a 10 or 15% drop in $1 million, that's $100,000 to $150,000. If you're in a market where normal homes are 200,000, you're only talking about maybe a $20,000 drop, right? So it doesn't feel as dramatic, but percentage wise, it's the same, right? So in a market like Vermont, where the housing prices are probably, the price points are much lower, it just doesn't feel as dramatic.
Right. So, okay, let's kind of get the across the state view. Sort of, how would you, Scott? Did the same thing happen on Oahu? I mean, I don't track the real estate market. I mean, I can't recall did Oahu crash that hard? Where now we're no, it didn't, right? What happened on? How would you characterize Oahu's kind of 10-year history and kind of where you see going forward?
Yeah, that's what was amazing during the downturn in 2000, that 2008 crash. Oahu, we have all the military bases here, and most of our economic diversity is here. So the outer islands, I think the unemployment was like 11, 12%, whereas Oahu only hit 6%. That was actually classified as full employment by the federal government. And we only dropped 11% from top to bottom during that time. And we bottomed out about 2011. And we've actually been on a really, what I feel is a very comfortable, moderate growth rate of 4.5%. 4 to 5% per year during that time up until now, which is along our historic average. The last 35 years has been 4.5% appreciation. So that's a more sustainable growth market for us, and not these huge spikes that we had seen in the past, where in 2008 you had a downside. But we only dropped 11% from top to bottom, which is significantly less than most places in the country.
Yeah, Oahu didn't. My characterization, and I've said this before on the show, is Oahu didn't go to the party. For all these huge rises in real estate, we didn't go to the party. Therefore, we didn't have the hangover. Heidi, how would you characterize? You've been in the market you've been in real estate for about that long, right? How would you characterize kind of what Maui's curve was like again over the past 10 years, and what does that tell you about kind of where Maui's where's Maui's going into the future?
Yeah, well, throughout the time I've been practicing real estate, I've come across many people over the past 5-6 years, especially, who have been waiting for another crash, like in 2008, 2009. And our bottom was closer to probably 2010, 2011, and then things have been steadily increasing. But there are a lot of places where they are not back up to where they were in 2007, 2008. So, I mean, we always look at when we take a listing, where somebody purchased the property and what their expectations are. But there has been, I mean, historically on Maui over time, just a really strong appreciation in most markets.
So there are some places on Maui that kind of somewhat like the Big Island are just recovering now, or even what you said have not quite yet recovered. So Maui had a little bit of that's interesting. Very interesting.
Personal story, right? Example on how this all happened, and kind of illustrating the crash and why it happened. And we've talked about this before, where people are kind of waiting for a similar crash because they remember it, but the environment is much different. The lending environment, most importantly, is very different than it was back in the early 2000s. And to illustrate that, in the early 2000s, in 2004, I was a college student on the GI Bill with no real job. And my wife who wasn't my wife at the time, had been teaching school for 6 months. And we got a $250,000 mortgage to buy a house. So there was they call them ninja loans, right? No job, no income or assets, and they give you a loan because the lending environment was very different back then. And 3 years later, so this is in 2004, 3 years later, we're going to get married and we want to get some money. So we refinanced the house that we bought for $250 3 years prior, and it appraises for $400,000. This is a little tiny 1,000-square-foot house in Hilo, simple, nothing, no frills. And I was thinking, this is insane. I'm rich, you know? And we, of course, we didn't take out that whole $400,000. We took out enough to finance the wedding and other things, luckily. And then the crash happens in 2009, and we were thinking about selling the house around that time, and we couldn't. It was almost back down to what we had bought it for, so we ended up holding it and renting it over time. And then even back to 14, we still only sold it for a little over $300,000. So if somebody had bought that house from us in 2007, we could have sold for $400,000. I mean, they would probably still be underwater today. Because that's how dramatic the rise and the fall was over here on the Big Island in a market like Hilo. Wow.
And, there's been a lot of folks I saw a lot of comments across the channels and stuff when COVID was starting that, people were, I don't want to say hoping for a crash, but people kind of were waiting for a crash. Other than Waikiki, which I don't know if, Scott, if we characterize that as a crash, but it doesn't seem, yes, okay, Scott saying it wasn't a crash. So even Waikiki that got hit has not sort of crashed. And it'll be very interesting to kind of see what kind of a recovery this is going to be. Not an economic recovery, but a visitor industry recovery. It's going to be really interesting. I think those 15-minute, those instant tests are going to become mainstay. I don't see anywhere around the airline industry not having that universal everywhere. If those tests are good, and if you know that you're negative going on a plane, and everyone knows that they're negative on the plane, and you take another test after you get to where you're arriving just to be sure. I mean, I think that's going to be great. So looking forward to that. I can't even imagine, I was saying to my wife the other day, it's like, I don't know if I could even remember or imagine what it's like to be normal. Could you imagine going to like a crowded restaurant or going to like a crowded, jazz club where there's people, where you're shoulder to shoulder and you're crammed in line with people and you're having drinks? I can't even imagine that. Anyway, Jim popped in a quick question. Hey, will any inter-island quarantines also end on October 15th? Jim, don't know. We don't know. That's part of the but. That's yet to be determined. The neighbor island folks, again, as I mentioned, they want to do like a double test. They want to test when you get there and then test again in 3 days. I don't know what that's going to actually roll out to be like. The answer is we don't know. And that's one of the issues where, again, I'm kind of saying, I don't know if I'd still buy a ticket yet. I mean, I've been pessimistic. The state's done this once before, but man, they can't screw this one up. They just can't. Okay, let's move on. We got another one here to go for it. This is Scott. This one's for you. And the title I've got here is Bullying for a White Kid. James from Florida says, moving to Oahu with an elementary school age son, is bullying or discrimination likely for a Caucasian kid? What areas should we look for in a $700,000 to $850,000 range? My wife likes how new Eva is. I like Kailua, but it's too expensive there, I believe. We'd be looking for a 3+, 2+ bath, single family home. Would also like a good school district. So Scott, we don't have to talk about the bullying part because I think that's just a general part. Let's just talk about school districts. If James had come to you with this kind of a question and on Oahu, what would your advice be to him?
Yeah, I mean, the price point he's looking at, and especially if you're wanting newer construction, that's going to lend you to that Eva area, which is a great area, great community. That's right in the sweet spot for that price point in Eva. You could do Makakilo, Kapolei, even potentially Royal Kania, Waikele, that whole cluster that's right in that general area. And that's what you're looking at. Kailua, I mean, anything under $1 million is going to need work. Anything under 900,000 is probably a major fixer. So that unless you're willing to put 100, 150, 200,000 into something that you're still going to have a single wall construction home on shell afterwards, that rules out Kailua. And a lot of other areas. You might be able to squeeze over to Pearl City where there's some good schools as well. Mililani Town is actually, you could potentially do townside in this price point, Mililani Town, but Mililani Mauka is 900 and up now. So
Let's talk briefly about the challenges that a Caucasian kid might have going to a public school in Hawaii. I don't have any empirical stories to tell you. I don't have any sort of things to kind of statistics to demonstrate. But I have said on my channel in other places, there are challenges. There are challenges for various areas on Oahu. Scott, have you had any feedback or experience with people that have moved into the Ewa Beach area or Pearl City area versus, for example, Hawaii Kai area? Is there anything you want to kind of share about that we can help out James for this kind of question?
Yeah, no, I don't think this is related necessarily to a white kid, so to speak. I mean, my last girlfriend was a teacher, has been one for 20 years, and they're starting to, help the teachers educate the kids on how to not do bullying, period, not related just to white kids. So I don't, and Ewa Beach there's a significant number of military buyers in Ewa. I would say 80% of your purchases and sales that are done in Ewa, in that Ewa Plain area, are VA loans, which means that's military buyers. So there's a large demographic of military in that area, which is going to make up for a very diverse group of kids and a strong, what you would call, white kid kind of community in that area.
I think, Dylan, you've got a unique perspective here because your wife is a public school teacher. So from your family's perspective, and so the stories you've heard from your wife and what you've known about sort of the public school system, what kind of general advice would you give for families that have a concern, that have just moved here from the mainland and are about to enter their children into some public schools around Hawaii?
I think mainly is just integrate into the community. Get involved in sports teams. Kids with friends. I mean, today the communities are very diverse. There is no majority race in Hawaii, right? I mean, you're like 30%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 10%. So, I wouldn't say that you're in like a minority where everybody kind of looks down upon you or looks at you differently. The community matters. I mean, if you're in a community like the Kona community where it's over 50% Caucasian in this community, so it is a majority white community, but there's other areas on the island or other areas in the state where it may be different. But I think the biggest thing, like we talk about, even just adults fitting in, it's not necessarily a race thing, it's how you conduct yourself. And if you integrate into the community and embrace the culture, you're going to be fine. And my personal parenting strategy with bullying is just raising kids that are confident, that my kids have been doing martial arts since they were 5, not so they can beat people up, but so they don't feel threatened if they're in a situation where you do have a bully, because they have the tools to defend themselves. So it's things like that you can, I think, instill in kids, where it's just a lot of time kids get bullied because they don't exude the confidence or have those relationships where they're not going to allow it and not going to put up with it. And so that's just one way, as from a parenting standpoint, to kind of look at it. And we definitely have lots of parents that brings their kids to our jiu-jitsu club, that that's their whole intent in life, is so the kid feels like they can defend themselves and they don't feel threatened when they're put in those situations.
I think the big takeaway, Dylan, that you've said, and we've said this consistently on the show, is that it's really all about, it's not necessarily a racial thing in Hawaii. It's more of a fitting in with the culture thing in Hawaii. So I think from a parenting perspective, I'd want to be thinking about, how well does my child integrate with new friends? If I put my child in a new environment, how are they going to get along or not get along with the other kids in the area? Especially not to put it into a racial context, but to kind of say, look, if I put my kid in with a group of other kids that, let's just say, don't look like they do, how would they react? Would they just not even care? Would it not even matter? Would they be afraid? Would they be whatever? I think that's more of a question. Heidi, can you speak?
And don't assume on how you're going to get treated, right? The reality is 10% of people are jerks all over the whole entire world, right? 90% of people are usually pretty good people, and you just have to go into a situation looking to make friends and alliances with the good people, and that'll buffer you from the 10% that are jerks. So.
Yeah, that's just basically, again, that's basically just good social skills, right? I mean, how socially adept are your children? Heidi, do you have any kind of anecdotal stories or things that you want to share about speaking to the adjustment process for families that have just moved here from the mainland and their kids go to public school, and how the adjustment has been, and sort of anything that you'd like to share about that?
Sure. Well, I think moving for adults or kids to a new place is certainly an adjustment, and keeping an open mind is really important. Now, schools on Maui, the population on Maui is more diverse than a lot of places on the mainland, and I mean, there's great things about that. I mean, whether you're white or Hawaiian or whatever. I mean, it's a mix of people here. So, I mean, I really do think it's just about being friendly, being confident, and also giving kids opportunities to interact with other kids their age outside of school too, in the neighborhoods, and just building those social skills.
Yeah, that kind of echoes what Dylan's been saying. So I hope this gives everybody a pretty good impression of sort of the ins and outs of this thing. Hawaii is an interesting place because technically, like Dylan had mentioned, everyone's a minority. There is no, it's about 30% Caucasian, 30% Polynesian, and 30% Asian mix, like Japanese, Filipino, etc. So it's a very interesting place. All right. Let's go on to our next question over here. And this one is coming from Wayne and Jasmine Agena. And they say, my wife and I are thinking of retiring to either Maui or the Big Island in a couple of years. We're kama'ainas returning to Hawaii after 40 years. Kama'aina is a typical term that's being used to say someone who's local, has acclimated to the local culture. Returning to Hawaii after 40 years. Some may consider the subject distasteful, but during our research, we came across some information about wastewater issues in Hawaii, specifically cesspools. How bad is it on each island, and is there information as to where the concentration is? We would rather settle where there is county water, county sewage, and electricity to avoid that type of situation. So Heidi, I've never heard about this sort of on Maui, but Maui. What is there a cesspool situation or concern on Maui, areas to avoid?
Well, not necessarily areas to avoid, but definitely something to be aware of, especially when you're looking at properties in rural areas. You'll find cesspools at older properties, and most of them on Maui are located upcountry. Now, according to the Hawaii State Department of Health website, there's approximately 88,000 cesspools in the state. There's about 12,000 on Maui. I believe most of them are on the Big Island. But a cesspool is essentially a hole in the ground that receives and holds sewage. And a cesspool doesn't filter waste. And some of them can pose a risk to water quality seeping into the ground. Now, the water source from upcountry, where a lot of the cesspools are, is actually surface water from the rainforest. So the water upcountry would not necessarily be affected. It would be aquifers at lower elevations, potentially. In general, water on Maui is safe to drink. I'm not personally aware of any water issues. I know some people that are sensitive to water quality, they can do an extra level of filtration at home. But in regards, just back to the whole cesspool thing, in 2017, there was a state law that was passed that requires residents who have cesspools, they have to replace them by 2050. So if you buy a house now with a cesspool, in 30 years, you might need to upgrade that to a septic. Well, you will by law, unless they change it. And if you're planning on building a new dwelling or getting a building permit to get an addition, you're also going to need to upgrade that cesspool to septic. And I understand this can cost $20,000 to $40,000. So it's definitely something you want to be aware of in your due diligence period when you're looking at that. But if you don't like the idea of cesspools, there's plenty of areas that you can buy and own on Maui that have county water and sewer or have septic. So it just depends which area you're looking in.
Thank you, Heidi. You obviously really well prepared to answer that question. Thank you. That's a lot of great detail. Better than my COVID update, I might say. So, Dylan, Heidi mentioned Big Island, and Big Island's like the land of the wild, wild west over here. Where people do all kinds of things, especially in the Puna district, where you have homes that are living off the grid and living off of rainwater that they catch on their roofs, this catchment system. What's the situation with the cesspools on the Big Island?
We have a ton of them. So that's let me start with, I don't want to come off as pro cesspool, but it's not a big deal. I've lived on them my whole entire life pretty much, and it's a pretty low maintenance, easy way to deal with wastewater. I mean, as Heidi said, it's just a hole in the ground that has a concrete cap on it, and your wastewater goes into it. So your other option is a septic tank, which now you have to build if you are going to do any new construction, which most people are familiar with a septic system. We have very limited connected sewer neighborhoods here on the Big Island. So you would greatly reduce your availability of places to shop if you use that as a restriction. I've never really encountered anybody who does, because at the end of the day, it really shouldn't be a deterrent. A lot of times a cesspool is the lowest. I mean, one, there's no cost. There's really no maintenance. And as long as you don't pour any crazy stuff down your drain, it pretty much, because of our porous volcanic foundation and soil, it just drains into the ground. So you don't really have to pump it ever. Sometimes you do, but it's rare. It's not like a septic system, which is going to need regular maintenance from time to time. So in my advice is, don't use it as a deterrent. You do have to consider, as Heidi said, the 2050 conversion law. But in my opinion, that's a feel-good law that is pretty much going to be unenforceable for most people, because if you have built out older neighborhoods and you have homes right next to each other and the cesspool is right between, and you have a retaining wall that for the yard, I mean, people are not going to be able to get machinery into these homes. And there's going to be thousands of people who would be in violation of the law because it's not going to be practical to actually do the conversion. So that's something the state's going to have to deal with when the time comes. And are you going to be forcing 80-year-old ladies on a fixed income who have been in the house for 60 years to convert with this huge cost because of this law? Or are you going to put them in jail? I mean, I don't see how they're gonna actually enforce that law, because it's very impractical. I mean, it's a good intent, but actually implementing it's going to be very hard to do when the time comes.
Thanks, Dylan. As hearing you and Heidi kind of go into some of these details and about this law in 2050, if I got that right, really, again, it really makes me appreciate having you folks here with this knowledge, because this is something that
And one more thing about the concern about water. So there was a big movement here 2 years ago, I think it was, to designate our aquifer, some special federal designation. The national parks are trying to do this. So there was a bunch of community meetings and a bunch of experts that came out here to speak about groundwater and different things. And the interesting thing, I don't know about the other islands, but definitely on the Big Island, the water that we drink is from wells that are 1,000+ feet down. Yes, so you have to drill at about 1,000, between 1,000 and 2,000 feet of elevation. They drill these wells down and they pump the water up. And it's basically water that sits on it's a lens of fresh water that sits on the salty water that's below it, because that water permeates all the way through the island. And so they tap into that lens, and then that's where our water comes from. And it's extremely clean, because they have done studies, and based on the isotopes or whatever, they can see that this water fell on the mountains tens of thousands of years ago. 50,000 years ago is when this water actually fell in the mountains. It's been filtering through the volcanic rock all of these years before it gets down into this lens. So there's no way that a cesspool, which is 10 feet deep, is going to be permeating into our drinking water, which is 1,000 feet below and at higher elevations where there isn't very much population. So that isn't a practical, immediate concern. I mean, not in anybody's lifetime in the next couple thousand years. So.
Yeah, excellent. I always was blown away when I realized in Hawaii that all of our drinking water, every single drop of our drinking water, is filtered rainwater. Filtered rainwater that's gone through thousands of years of volcanic rock filtering. I always kind of tripped out about that. Scott, what's Oahu? Do we have a cesspool issue on Oahu at all? What's up with that?
Yeah, you'll get them. Well, the EPA obviously is trying to go away from the cesspools, and they had a ban on them in Hawaii, more or less on the commercial side, trying to convert them, and then now you have the residential law that Heidi's talking about. But yeah, along that windward, so if you get close to the ocean, then you sometimes have you could potentially have some leaching issues. But my first 2 development projects were actually done on septic systems. And, I had to do the research on that and learn about it, which was Dylan hit the nail on the head with how are you going to convert these? Because a cesspool is a hole in the ground. You don't need a lot of width. With a septic system, you need a leach field, and then you need you got to do percolation rates with absorption of the ground, how it absorbs that water as it goes through the system. And my Eva Beach one had to be pretty large, whereas the Hauula one was much smaller because the ground could absorb it really well. So you got to try to convert that where you need 40, 50 feet in 2 directions to be able to put this leach field and stuff, and you don't have it. What are you going to do? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the interesting thing, I wouldn't poo-poo it. To me, it's not a bad system. The first one, when I went to go put in all the sod and Eva, and I was running my water every day, 5 times a day to keep the grass going to get it to where it needed to go, I thought my water bill was going to be through the roof, and it was $30. And I'm looking at my regular house bill going, why is this $125? And I only run the water, to water the yard every other day, and this one's so much less. It's because the sewer charge is so much more expensive, and the water is actually dirt cheap over here. So there's pros and cons. The septic system, if you're able to get on septic, is not a bad system to be on. The windward coast past Kaneohe all the way around to the North Shore, there is no city sewer. You can't tap into it, so you're having to either be on cesspool or septic system.
That is
you got to consider you pay your sewer bill on how much water you use, not how much water you put in the system. So you could be spraying the water on the street, but you're paying your sewer bill for that, even though the water is going to feed your grass.
Which I'm surprised more people haven't caught the rainwater from their gutters to disperse as lawn sprinklers, but that's separate topic.
Catchment comes to Oahu. Thanks, Scott. I did not know about that on Oahu. At that, where does it start? You said how it's the septic only starts after
Kaneohe all the way through the North Shore. And even that one I did in Eva Beach, which is a very busy developed area. There's that one road, Old Fort Weaver Road, behind the hospital where I bought that lot and we developed it. And I'm going, wait, what? There's no city sewer over here? So
man, yeah. Cool. Great facts from the experts. More than I ever wanted to know about cesspools, but now I feel like I'm fairly well educated on cesspools. All right. Hey, real quick station break over here. Just wanted to give a pitch for the website. Look, if you're not on the newsletter, if you just found out about this some other way, you definitely want to get involved. You want to join the Ohana at livinginhawaii.com. You're going to get a pop-up to get the newsletter. The newsletter comes out every single Wednesday, and we talk about this show that gives you the updates and the scoops. And we also take video clips and questions and all this kind of stuff. You want to get a hold of that. And want you to be all a part of what's going on to meet you here next week. The audience is growing every week, and it's getting kind of fun. Well, we've got a quick question over here from Yaitza. Yaitza Vasquez says, I have a potential opportunity to move to Oahu. Before I commit to purchase, I wanted to know, what are the rental options like? Are there plenty of options near Camp Smith? We've talked about rentals for like a bunch of times, and I think the moral of the story that we had on rentals is you really want to go to kind of an Airbnb, VRBO kind of a place. That would be a good place to kind of look for to get your rental stuff started. Scott, this is more of an Oahu question. Do you have anything quick for Yaitza about Camp Smith?
Yeah, I mean, Camp Smith is so central. You have so many options, not only in central Oahu, but you could hop the H3 over to Kailua and Kaneohe. So depending on what you want for your commute time frame, you're in such a central location there that you have so many options at your fingertips for neighborhoods to choose from.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I would advise Yaitza you want to click on the description and put your question into the form so Scott gets it in case you want to have Scott help you out if you do decide to buy something over here on Oahu. I'm sure Scott would be more than happy to kind of work with you on it because that's what we do. Well, that's what Scott does. It's not what I do. It's what Scott does. Okay. Let's kind of hit this. Let's see. It's 40. We got 40. We're 46 minutes in. We have a few minutes left. Let's move to I want to get this before we go right up against the time break. Let's talk about diamonds and deals. This is one of my favorite parts of the show, where I've asked our friends here, Scott and Heidi and Dylan. I've asked them to pull out some properties that they think are aspirational. These are properties that we look at. They're either a diamond or a deal, or they're both. And it's always fun. So let's kind of move into that one. Let's start. Let's see. What's the first one that we got here? It's like, yeah, this was like, what in God's name is this? Ohia Park Place, 6 bedrooms in Koloko, listed at 2.997. Dylan, what is this?
So this is a killer property, huge property, obviously on 3 acres, and it was used for a bed and breakfast. So if you're looking for some type of like business opportunity, the left side as you're looking at it is a residence, and then on the right side of it, there are actually 3 bedroom suites on that side that you could rent out individually. So it's a beautiful, sprawling kind of estate property. I put a little picture of the pub. They have actually an Irish pub downstairs.
I was going to ask you about that. What is that?
Yeah, it's a good Irish pub. It's super cool downstairs, kind of in the basement. So you got a big deck, for entertaining and looking at the ocean view. I mean, yes, this is a diamond, but could be a deal. It's actually on. It's listed currently, but it's on auction. So now through November 2nd, it's going to be on open house every day from 1 to 4, and it's an auction. So there's no reserve, and they'll be taking bids on it. So it's something that you may want to throw a bid on. You don't have to get it for the listed price necessarily.
Holy moly! Now, where is Koloko on the Big Island?
Koloko is like right above the airport, and it's about 1,500 feet of elevation. It actually goes all the way up to about 4,000 feet. So it's this really huge agricultural subdivision, beautiful, old growth ohia trees all over the place. So it's really nestled in the forest, really cool elevation. And then obviously you're high up, so you got a good view overlooking Kona. So yeah, it's a great area if you like. I always recommend people considering living at elevation. People always want to, I have this idea they want to live by the beach, but from a comfortability standpoint and not needing air conditioning, being up in the mountain where, it gets down to 65 at night, super cool, perfect for sleeping. And during the day, you always have a cool breeze and doesn't get really hot. So elevation's nice.
Elevation, nice. I think the native peoples also agreed with you. They did not think that the beach was a good place to live nearby. They used to like to live a little bit up in the mountains. I remember that, hearing about that. All right, man, that thing is so. I was wondering what that was like. Is that a pub? Is that a bar? Yeah. What is that?
That looks like a full-on bar. It's really cool.
Jesus, that looks really cool. I wonder what the, my business side is doing, is trying to do some math on the B&B part if it's profitable. But anyway, let's move on. That's a cool one. Great. All right. So what's up next here? We got 426 Puaehu Street in Wailuku, 765. That's Maui. Heidi, what is this?
So this is a new construction home. It's in Wailuku, which is central Maui, and it's part of the Alima at Kealani development. It's under construction right now. It's going to be completed early 2021. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage, single level home for $765. I mean, this is really a great option for somebody looking to move into a neighborhood. It's close to Pu'ukakui Elementary School, which is a good elementary school. Something to know about this home is 1 year owner occupancy is required. So you can be from anywhere and buy it, but you have to agree to live in the home for 1 year. You can't buy it as an investment property.
So that seems to indicate to me that it's got a competitive, let's say lower than market value price. Is that kind of what's going on about? Is this like sort of their stab at kind of making it affordable housing? Is that, not to say it's affordable housing, but housing that is affordable? Is that what the thing is?
Well, it's developers and policy on Maui. I mean, they try to give people opportunities that are buying homes to live in, just because we have such a strong investor market. This development, I mean, there's not a lot of restrictions on it. It's really just limited to people that are going to occupy the home.
Occupy, got it.
Residents. And yeah, it's great for something brand new, with a garage. And I mean, it's a great value in this area.
It's like that classic single family home. And actually I was looking at the building plans of this one. It looks really nice. It's quite a big master suite with a walk-in closet, and the second bedroom has its own bathroom and all that kind of good stuff. So it looks like a really, really nice property. Good one. All right, let's take a look at the next one. What Scott got for us over here. Okay, not to be too outdone, Scott's got the 4-bedroom home near Diamond Head listed at 1.295. Scott, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, this actually was someone's done I want to say a flip, but just a major remodel. Everything has pretty much been changed except for your framing and your roofing structure. They've redone literally even the siding and the windows and every bit on the inside. Probably got rid of the K-neck, put in drywall, recessed lighting. They did a really nice job, and this is in a dynamite location, which is on the backside of Diamond Head. It's called Wilhelmina Rise, right at the base section there, which gives you super good access to the highway, into Honolulu, into all the shops and restaurants along Waialae Avenue. But this is basically you're walking into new home construction. They've done a really good job with about a 5,500 square foot lot and about 1,600 square foot of home on this one, and it's just under 1.3.
That it's kind of funny. I was looking at this one because if you look at it from the outside, it looks just like the traditional sort of old style, built in the 50s single family home construction. But you look at that kitchen, and that kitchen looks like it's sort of out of this world. They did a phenomenal job of that, and you got the recessed lighting. So total remodel is what it looks like. Yeah,
I've talked with this investment group. I know them pretty well. I've kind of chatted with them about some of their ideas and philosophy, and I agree with it. I kind of try to go in this direction, but on the new construction, where you come in and you turn everything over and do as nice of a product as you can. You see some flippers where they're trying to cut corners. These guys don't. They have pride in what they do. They try to make sure the floor plan is opened up to what you're doing today. They change all electrical, all plumbing. They put in full sod, the whole 9 yards. I like the product that they do and their philosophy. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, we got about 7 minutes to go over here, folks. If you have if there's any question that have popped up in your head since we got started, this is your kind of last call to get these in. We got a few more things that we want to cover over here, and I feel like we've been going through so much, not to say math, but it's been kind of some really intense, kind of great conversations over here with lots of details, which has been fabulous. I'm going to break it up a little bit with a little bit of an emotional kind of a shift over here. Dylan, this is for you. Mary asked a really, really simple question. Is it much more difficult to meet people on the Big Island? That's kind of we don't get those kinds of questions too often. Let's kind of, what's your take on that, Dylan?
Not at all. I mean, that's the best part about not just the Big Island, but Hawaii in general, is how welcomed you will be. That's got to be your default assumption, and that's going to be the case in almost every case. So from a matter of meeting people, I mean, obviously now there's not as many gatherings and stuff. So given the current environment, I would have to say it's probably a little bit more difficult. But in normal cases, no matter what you're interested in, whether it's swimming or crochet or playing cards or whatever, there's clubs for everything, there's community groups for everything, and you just got to get involved in those different types of community groups. And another thing, a great thing to get involved and do is get involved in something cultural, like join a hula halau and learn how to dance hula. Even if you've never done it, or if you're older, there's always a kupuna classes being senior or if you're a kid, put your kid in some class like that, something that you'll meet people from the community and they'll definitely take you in and embrace you. So I don't think that should be something you should be worried about at all.
That's a really, really good point. I think joining a hula halau or a canoe paddling club, those kinds of things will really get you connected with a really a local vibe, big time.
there's tons of groups who do like beach cleanups or highway cleanups. Those are the kind of people you really know, love, and care for their community, and those are the kind of people that you want to be around. So there's lots of opportunities to be in those types of groups.
Yeah, there's always a volunteer opportunity. I think you kind of just hit the whole. I think you've answered the question for us statewide, but I do want to go around the table here to kind of see if there's anything you want to add. Scott, is there anything that Dylan that you'd want to add to what Dylan already said?
Yeah, and this goes to Big Island, wherever, but I remember having this conversation with a client of mine about 10 years ago. The wife significantly integrated, loved being here, integrated within the community, and the husband was having a hard time, and he wasn't getting out of the house and he wasn't getting involved in things. And no matter where you move, you have to get involved in things you're passionate about or get involved within the community. And that's where you're going to have the interaction, and that's where you're going to have the connectivity. People here are very friendly and very opening, but you got to take that step. If you stay at home and are isolated, the people aren't coming to knock on your door. You've got to go out within the community.
Yeah, well said. You've got to get connected, and there's a variety of ways to do that. Heidi, is there anything you want to add to this that hasn't already been said? Sorry to put you last on this one, but is there anything that you'd like to add?
Well, great comments. I mean, that's
right.
really what I find is the difference between somebody that's going to move to Hawaii and last a year or two and then want to move back to the mainland, and then somebody who really embraces the community and makes friends and gets involved. And like was already said, I mean, it's just about getting involved in something you're interested in, and there's lots of opportunities. So definitely.
Yeah. Get connected, right? Get connected is the moral of the story over here. All right, let's hit this one. This one comes up a lot, and it's a little bit more. I want to call it about a fun question, but it's a light one. So renting with pets, how hard is it to rent with? So this is Stuart. Stuart from Glendive, Montana says, how hard is it to rent a place when you have pets? Also, how much more money does it cost to rent when having 2 pets? So Heidi, this is the Maui graphic over here. There's the sunrise over Haleakala, everybody. Heidi, why don't you get us started with this? What's the deal? What should you know if you're trying to rent with pets?
Well, it's possible. It's definitely a little bit more difficult because not all homeowners want to have pets in their home. As far as the cost of the rent, I mean, I don't think they charge you more rent or can. They are allowed to charge you an additional pet deposit. So like an additional deposit for your pet. There's places you could rent. It's your options will be a little bit more limited.
Yeah, pets are kind of tough. Dylan, what's the pet deal like on the Big Island?
The big limiting factor is going to be condos. The vast majority of condos have some type of pet limitation or pet ban other than service animals. And a lot of rentals are in condos or apartments where people use them as second homes or as investments. So you'd probably have to look towards the housing market. It's going to obviously be a lot more expensive. And then a lot of times people will, I mean, you can't charge per se for a pet, but there will be a little bit of extra rent built in if they do allow for pets. So it's surprising how many people I've helped buy a home who just couldn't find a rental because they had pets, so they had to buy something instead. So that does happen pretty often. I mean,
pets kind of really pulls out, really makes your search. I mean, it's hard to find a place to rent as it is on Oahu.
You got to put yourself in a landlord's shoes, right? If it's your house, I mean, of course you have pets, but would you want somebody else with their pets and you don't know how they take care of them and how you treat them or how well behaved the pets are? I mean, that's basically what happens, right? Is you got to kind of look at it from the other. There's
all kind of risks involved, and it pulls away your market. Scott, you had mentioned a long time ago we had talked about pets, and you had a pretty you had spoken about it. What's the pet? How does having pets change the equation on Oahu?
In a lot of ways, actually, Dylan touched on part of it is certain condominiums are going to have restrictions either on the number of pets, the size, weight of pets, the type of breed, or they don't allow them at all. If you got 1,000 rentals available out there, not all of them are going to be available to someone that has pets. They're not going to rent them out, allow pets. So you've already narrowed that supply pool. I actually, on the project that I'm working on now, I had 2 homes on there. And I was having a little bit of a hard time getting them rented. One was at $2,400 a month or whatever. And the minute I said, okay, we'll take pets, because I didn't really care, we were going to tear the house down in a year. Not only was I able to raise the rent, and got it rented pretty quickly to someone with pets because there's, a lot of pet owners and less, supply there. But you can charge technically the pet deposit can be 1 month's rent. Then you got your monthly, your deposit up front, which is 1 month's rent. And then you have the 1 month's rent up front you're collecting. So you're almost at 3 times the rent right up front to collect for pet damage and stuff, which they changed a couple of years ago, which was to help move homeowners and landlords into accepting more pet rentals.
So the moral of the story is pet's going to cost you.
Yep.
One way or another, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you in finding it. It's going to cost you in rent. It's going to cost you a bunch of things. All right, gang. Well, look, it's been another phenomenal show. I really appreciate Scott and Heidi and Dylan. Really appreciate you folks being here. I love the conversations. They're actually really a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed staying with us. We're going to see you in 2 weeks, and we're going to find out if Hawaii is going to be open for business in 2 weeks or not. So with that, say goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Aloha.
All right. Aloha.